Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai.
Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai.
Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram.
Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram.
Jaya Radha Govinda Madhav, Radha Govinda Madhav, Radha Govinda Madhav, Shri Radhe.
Jaya Radha Govinda Madhav, Radha Govinda Madhav, Radha Govinda Madhav, Shri Radhe.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Shila Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So this is the 10th canto, chapter 1, text 68. Atmanam iha sanjatam
Atmanam iha sanjatam,
janan pragvishnu nahatam
Janana Vishnuvatam,
mahasuram kalanemim
Mahasura Kalademi,
yadu bihi savya vyarutyata.
Yadubhisavayajata,
Atmanam iha sanjatam
Atmanam iha sanjatam,
janan pragvishnu nahatam
Janana Vishnuvatam,
mahasuram kalanemim
Mahasura Kalanemim,
yadu bihi savya rudyata.
Yadubhisavayajata,
Atmanam iha sanjatam
Atmanam iha sanjatam,
janan pragvishnu nahatam
Janana Vishnuvatam,
Mahasuram Kalanemim Yadu Bihi Savyarudyata
Atmanamya sanjatam
Atmanamya sanjatam
Janang Vishnatam
Vishnunahatam
Mahasuram Kalanemim
Mahasuram Kalanemim
Yadubi Sajarujyata
Yadubi Sajarujyata
Atmanamika sanjatam
Atmanamya sanjatam
Janantra Vishnunahatam
Janam Vishnunahatam
Mahasuram Kalanemim
Mahasuram Kalanemim
Yadokhihi Savyarutyata
Yadubi Sajarujyata.
Mataji's?
Atmanami sanjatam
Atmanamya sanjatam
Janam Vishnunahatam
Janam Vishnunahatam
Mahasuram Kalanim
Mahasuram Kalanemim
Yadupi Savyarujyata
Yadubi Sajarujyata
Atmanami sanjatam
Atmanamya sanjatam
Janam
Janam
Vishnunahatam
Vishnunahatam
Mahasuram Kalanim
Mahasuram Kalanemim
Yadupi Savyarujyata
Yadubi Sajarujyata.
I'll do the word-for-word translation. Atmanam, personally.
Atmanam personally.
Iha, in this world.
Iha in this world.
Sanjatam, born again.
Sanjatam again.
Janan, understanding well.
Janam understanding well.
Prak, previously before this birth.
Previously before this birth.
Vishnuna, by Lord Vishnu.
By Lord Vishnu.
Hatam, was killed.
Hatam was killed.
Maha Asuram, a great demon.
Mahasuram, a great demon.
Kala Nemim, by the name Kala Nemi.
Kalanemim, by the name Kalanemim.
Yadu Bihi, with the members of the Yadu dynasty.
Yadubi, the members of the Yadu dynasty.
Saha, he, Kamsa. Vyarudyata, acted inimically.
Yadubi acted inimically.
So the translation is, in his previous birth, Kamsa had been a great demon named Kalanemi and had been killed by Vishnu. Upon learning this information from Narada, Kamsa became envious of everyone connected to the Yadu dynasty. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Persons who are demons, enemies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are called Asuras. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Asuras, because of their enmity toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead, take birth after birth in Asura families, and therefore glide down into the darkest regions, into the darkest hellish regions. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So good morning, welcome. So first, I guess, confession time. This is my first ever Srimad Bhagavatam class, as you can probably tell already. So I was asked yesterday during dinner. I was comfortably eating my my dessert, and I was just relishing in the enjoying spirit. And then somebody who was very dear to me came over to me and said, "Yes, you should give Srimad Bhagavatam." And of course, my first instinct was, "I'm not doing that." Like, why would I do that when there's so many qualified people to do that? And then I actually remembered that a couple of days ago during the anniversary program, I'd specifically prayed to Balaram that get me out of my comfort zone and get me preaching. So I thought that it would not be appropriate to say no. So having gone through the motions of saying no and then saying yes, I'm now very grateful for this opportunity for purification. But I do pray for your blessings, for all the senior devotees that are there, and also begging for forgiveness in advance for any mistakes that I will surely make in this. So thank you so much. So the translation: in his previous birth, Kamsa had been a great demon named Kalanemi and had been killed by Vishnu. Upon hearing this information from Narada, Kamsa became envious of everyone connected to the Yadu dynasty. So I thought let's just start with a little recap of where we are. This is the penultimate verse in this chapter of chapter 1, Canto 10, chapter 1. And we also have a couple of guests that have come for our first ever Bhagavatam class. So it was, remind me of your names? Lucas and? Ryan, amazing. So I know you've got some phenomenal story that I haven't got to the bottom of yet, but somehow or other you found yourself in a Srimad Bhagavatam class at 8:20 in the morning in the middle of France. I don't know where we are in France, but I know we're in France. So welcome, and so nice to see you participating as well. So for the benefit of them, and actually for the benefit of all of us, we may have heard this many, many times, but it's so purifying hearing the Lord's pastimes. It's always useful to have a little bit of a recap in terms of what's been happening so far. In fact, text number 4, as preparation, I just read through the verses for this chapter. Text number 4 says, descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. And later on it goes on to say it's the remedy for all suffering in this age of Kali. So actually it gives you a huge amount of solace just hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in an attentive way. So here's the recap, the big story. If this isn't familiar with you, just go with it. It's an epic story with some wonderful lessons. But essentially at a time 5,000 years ago, Mother Earth was overburdened with demons. And these demons were dressed as kings. Although this was 5,000 years ago, it's not so hard to relate to having some leaders that have some demonic tendencies. And so Mother Earth personified approached Lord Brahma, who is the engineer of this world, and asked for some relief. Like, I'm overburdened, there's so much going on here. And Lord Brahma reassured Mother Earth. He said, don't worry, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will personally appear as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. And he also instructed all of the demigods who are devotees of the Lord to take birth in the Yadu dynasty. So the demigods are elevated personalities, and he said, take birth on earth within this wonderful family, so that you can support this mission to remove all of the demonic influences that have overburdened earth. So we know the story. Vasudeva married Devaki. It was a beautiful ceremony, and Devaki's brother Kamsa was their chariot driver. So there was no Teslas then. It was very much chariots, horses, and the brother took the role, as you might expect, the humble position of actually driving their chariot. And then just then, Kamsa heard a voice in the sky, a prophecy, an omen. Kamsa, you fool! The 8th child, the woman you are carrying, will kill you. And so Kamsa is described as holding the reins with his left hand. And so he let go of the reins and immediately grabbed Devaki's hair. And with his other hand, right hand, drew his sword, ready to kill her there and then. Of course, just hearing this, you think, this is madness. I mean, this is her brother. How can this be possible? And before he had been so affectionate as her brother. But as soon as he heard that his life was at risk, he flipped, and he turned from being the affectionate brother to being an enemy. And Srila Prabhupada comments in the purport that this is the nature of a demon. They're willing to do anything abominable when it comes to self-interest. So they may be speaking some very sweet words in the moment, but ultimately they're only self-interested. They're selfish by nature. That is the quality or the nature of a demon. Whereas a devotee is aspiring to be the opposite. The devotee is aspiring to be selfless in every situation. So we should also be a little bit careful when around association of those that seemingly are our friends, but actually their real intention is self-interested, because it means at any moment, as soon as the two no longer align, they can pull us down in that moment. So we can learn that immediately from Kamsa, that our situation in this material world is precarious. We may think that we are very comfortable, but at any moment, someone can show their Kamsa face, which is cruel and shameless and envious, as described. So a brother is meant to protect his sister. I'm actually married myself, my wife is here, and it's fair to say that my brother-in-law was not so supportive of our marriage. And he was a little bit inimical, but I can't say that on the day of marriage he came out and, grabbed our hand and said, so I guess it can give us some perspective. We may not get on with our brother-in-laws, and we may think, why, Lord, why did I get him as a brother-in-law? But in fact, at least it isn't Kamsa. So in this situation, Vasudev, who is the husband of Devaki, had to think fast. And so he stepped in to try and pacify this demon whose ego was getting way out of control. It was a joyous occasion, but he had to deal with this personality. So often when you face someone like that, the first thing you have to do is pacify their ego. And that's exactly what Vasudev did in this situation. He started to massage Kamsa's ego. He started to say, you are the pride of the family. Why would you want to do this? This is going to bring disrepute to your entire family, your reputation. You're better than this. There's no need to do this. It's going to be so detrimental. You're so merciful. You're so kind. Your sister deserves your love and affection. He also then went on to explain some philosophy, that ultimately we're the soul, we're eternal, and everyone must die. So if this prophecy is true, then it's going to happen. But don't die in such a horrible way that you accumulate a whole bunch of karma on your way out. You're at the exit door, and this is your opportunity to do something good and make sure your next life is right. But Kamsa wasn't hearing any of it. He was in this state of self-preservation, and he didn't care about the results of his sinful activities either in this life or the next. And so Vasudev, the husband, had to come up with another plan. And his new plan to save his new wife from imminent danger was to promise to hand over all of his children to Kamsa. Do you remember what Kamsa was worried about? The omen was the 8th child is going to be born, and the 8th son is going to kill you. So he thought, if I go to Kamsa and I say, the 8th child, I'm going to hand over all the children to you, then you're safe. There's no need to kill my wife and your sister. And so Kamsa was actually pacified by this. Although he was a very sinful demon, he knew that Vasudev was a man of character. There's not many people in the world that you can say are people of character, that they are absolutely true to their word. In fact, in this age, we know it's an age of quarrel and hypocrisy, but in particular, truthfulness, that last leg of Dharma, is the one that is very much wavering. But at that time, in a previous age, if Vasudev said something, even though it was going to be so painful to him, to give away his children, I mean, we can't even conceive. He was willing to do the right thing and be dutiful and hand over his children. And so Devaki, and so Kamsa was actually pacified by this and said, okay, I agree to that deal, so to speak. But then there's a bizarre twist of fate, which is somewhat surprising if you first read it. And that is a devotee of the Lord, Narada Muni, actually appears to Kamsa. And he says, Kamsa, you really are a fool. You don't get it, do you? This has all been orchestrated. The demigods have gone to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is coming as Krishna, or Krishna is coming through Vishnu. And he is going to kill you. And not just that, all of his friends, the devotees, the demigods, have already promised to take birth within the Yadu dynasty, in this family line. And so you aren't safe. Yes, it's true. Vasudeva agrees that it's only the 8th child and you can not worry about the others. But how do you know? Don't take any chances. It's highly risky for you. And so in this state again, Kamsa became very anxious, and he thought, yeah, you're absolutely right. And why was I taking chances in the first place? That in itself is quite interesting, that Kamsa felt in control, he felt complacent, and then all of a sudden when he realized I'm not in control, he just started panicking and went back to his default state, which is to be demonic and do horrible things in that situation. And the question might arise, why did Narada Muni, the devotee of the Lord, get involved like this? Why is he stirring the pot? Everything seemed to be going somewhat well. And it's explained that because Narada Muni understood that this had to happen. And as we'll explain now, these sons that were to be killed had to be born for a particular reason. So he saw the big picture because he was a pure devotee of the Lord, and so was ultimately speeding up the process. So over to the verse itself, where we find ourselves, and it says, so the previous verse was just explaining that Narada Muni has come, and then now it's, in his previous birth, Kamsa had been a great demon named Kalanemi, who had been killed by Vishnu. Upon hearing this information from Narada, Kamsa became envious of everyone connected to the Yadu dynasty. So I was looking for some information on Kalanemi in the purport, and I couldn't find any. Fortunately, Naveen Krishna Prabhu told me that they are in the notes. So if you're ever looking for information on this, it is in the notes that just ends the chapter. So in here it's on page number 112. So I'm just going to read directly from Prabhupada on this, and then we can expand. So formerly, an Asura named Kalanemi had 6 sons, and they were known as the Sadgarbhas, or the 6 Garbhas. And they were equally powerful and expert in military affairs. These Sadgarbhas gave up the association of Hiranyakashipu, their grandfather, and underwent great austerities to satisfy Lord Brahma, who, upon being satisfied, agreed to give them whatever benediction they might desire. When asked by Lord Brahma to state what they wanted, the Sadgarbhas replied, "Dear Lord Brahma, if you want to give us a benediction, give us the blessing that we will not be killed by any demigod, Maharoga, Yaksha, Gandharva Pati, Siddha, Charana, or human being, nor by great sages who are perfect in their penances and sacrifices." Brahma understood their purpose and fulfilled their desire. So the idea here is that they were born into a demonic family and they didn't want to be killed. And they thought, who are the people that might kill us? And it's most likely to be the devotees of the Lord, because there's this cosmic war going on between good and evil. And it's the demons against the devotees in one sense. And so they thought, we're going to go to Lord Brahma and we're going to get a benediction that we will not be killed by any of these personalities that we expect. But in doing that, they were successful. They got these boons and benedictions. But it's described their grandfather, Hiranyakashipu, became very angry. Because the idea, Hiranyakashipu is another great demon. And he thought, why are you going to Lord Brahma? I'm Hiranyakashipu. I can give you anything you need. There's no need to go to Lord Brahma. And so he actually cursed them. He became very angry at his grandsons. And he says, "You have given up my association and have gone to worship Lord Brahma. And therefore I no longer have any affection for you. You have tried to save yourself from the hands of the demigods, and I curse you in this way." So this is the curse that he gives. "Your father will take birth as Kamsa and kill you because you will take birth as the son of Devaki." And so because of this curse, the grandsons of Hiranyakashipu had to take birth in the womb of Devaki and be killed by Kamsa, although he was previously their father. And so previously he was their father, and his name was Kalanemi. So that is the connection in relation to this. So again, it's a little bit bewildering to understand how is it possible that these personalities are born and these personalities are destined to die. Like they're babies. They're just born. Like it doesn't sit right. But as with everything in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a deeper meaning or understanding to everything that goes on. So actually in the next chapter, Canto 10, Chapter 2, Text 8, in the purport, we learn that these 6 garbhas, these 6 personalities, actually represent different things. So they represent Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, and Matsarya, which represents lust, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and envy. So these are known as anarthas. These are known as things that are within our heart that are blocking us from understanding and loving the Lord. If you think about all the problems in the world, they all stem from these 6 things. I'll repeat them again. Lust, where we're just craving. I want to satisfy my selfish desire. Anger, where we aren't able to control it. It becomes like a fire, and so we're willing to hurt other people. Greed, illusion, madness, and the last one, envy. Imagine a world without these 6 anarthas. Imagine a world where instead of lust there was love. Instead of greed, people wanted to actually serve selflessly. Instead of illusion, people were full of knowledge. Instead of envy, people just wanted to serve. And that's the idea of what we're all trying to do. This is a movement of purification. And so when you wake up early in the morning and you pray to the Lord and you chant your rounds, ultimately what you're trying to do is purify your heart. You're praying constantly, please, I know there's all this dirt in my heart, but if I can just remove this dirt, then Krishna can enter. And so the same analogy is given that these 6 personalities, they represented these 6 anarthas. And so they needed to be removed and ultimately needed to die. And then Balaram can enter, and then ultimately the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, can enter also. So everything happens for a reason in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It can be a little bit complicated to understand, but there is a lot of depth and a lot of layers that is going on. So I just thought I'd spend a little bit of time talking about one of the anarthas because it's mentioned in the text itself. And that anartha is envy. So it says here, Kamsa became envious of everyone connected to the Yadu dynasty. So this was what Kamsa was showing. He was showing envy. The actual Sanskrit here is vyarudhyata, so acted inimically. But envy is a good word for it. Acting inimically is in many ways like envy. So out of all of the different anarthas, I mean, they're all pretty bad, don't get me wrong. But out of all the anarthas, envy is the most toxic in many ways of all the different emotions or feelings that we can experience in life. They're absolutely horrible. And I remember hearing once that it's the one thing in our heart that we can't really use in service. It's such, at its root, it's so corrupt. Others can be used, like if you're angry, you can use that in transcendental service. And the example given is Hanuman. So Hanuman is a personality who was angry, and if you imagine you seeing, a very innocent person being attacked, you may get angry, but you can use that anger to defend them. But envy you can't do. And so I was discussing earlier this distinction of envy and jealousy. So jealousy is, I see that you've got something nice, and I want that. But I'm okay with you having it, but I want it, because I'm jealous in that situation. But envy is so messed up, so to speak, that it causes me distress seeing you happy. So you see other people happy, and I feel distressed. And likewise, I feel joy and happiness seeing other people in distress. I mean, what kind of consciousness is that? But actually, it's very prevalent in the material world. People are very, very, very envious. And so the idea is that I see you and I want to drag you down. I want to pull you down as far as I can. And seeing your success burns me. It burns me inside. And we see this a lot. We see that, we see envy manifest in so many different ways in the material world, but it's most prominent when you see someone who is successful. And, you get people on social media and they're keyboard warriors. They've got absolutely nothing better to do with their life than just go all out attack on this person. They don't even know this person, but they just feel so much envy. I can't feel even a little bit of joy seeing your success. Not that I want it. I don't want to be a great sports person. I don't want to be a great celebrity. I don't want to be a politician. I just want to shoot arrows from the back and create as much pain as possible. And that gives me pleasure. And this is the problem with the world, that there are people in this world that are willing to lose one eye if it means that the person next to them loses both eyes. Can you just contemplate that for a moment? It's absolute madness. Envy isn't in our self-interest. Envy is dragging us down to the greatest depths of hell. But at the same time, because we have this anartha and we don't know how to deal with it, we have this lose-lose mindset. So Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Effective People, says we should try to adopt this mindset of win-win. Everyone is an ally. In every interaction, I have the possibility to get a win out of this. Let me just see it from their side. Let me see it from my side. And surely there's a way that we can win. But envy is a lose-lose situation in every scenario. And so we have to do something to deal with it. And the question is, where does envy really stem from? We're very fortunate, we've just been hearing from His Grace Raj Bihari Prabhu these last few days. And he was explaining, not specifically in relation to envy, but he was explaining in relation to a lot of the times when we act in awful ways. It is because of deep insecurity in our heart. And really our false ego. This sense of, I don't feel secure in myself. And so how am I going to react to that? And the best way that I can feel better about myself is pulling down those around me, because maybe that's going to make me feel better. I remember this example. I won't get political, but I do remember this one example of Donald Trump, our favorite personality. I'm being sarcastic in case anyone doesn't understand my sarcasm. He's at this when he was president of the United States, and he was with all these different leaders of NATO, and he was behind. And so he saw all these leaders there, and literally he's pushing them aside, like he sees the cameras, and he's like, I'm going to be taller, I'm going to be greater. And the first thing I thought when I saw that, I thought, man, you're so insecure. Like really, that is just, it is a telltale sign. If someone can't be happy for someone else's success, there is a deep level of insecurity. Like we tell kids, right, when you notice a bully, why is someone a bully? It's because they are insecure in themselves. And so they feel they need to impose themselves. If actually you are satisfied and at peace with yourself and happy with who you are, then you have no need to pull others down. You can be happy when you see other people successful, and you can think, wow, they've been blessed and I aspire to reach that goal. And when you see someone suffering, you feel compassionate and you feel that it's a horrible thing, and I pray that they can rise up from this particular situation. So it's interesting that we see it in the material world, but we also see envy manifest in our Krishna consciousness as well. We definitely see it in our movement. When we start chanting, when we start devotional service, we know that a cleaning takes place. So if you've ever cleaned a room, and I can't say my wife is in the room, so I can't say I've done it too many times, because I'm one of Vyasa's sons, I have to be honest. But when you clean a room, dust arises. And so when you first start practicing Krishna consciousness, so both of you are here for the first time, and you're surrounded by these pure souls, and all of a sudden you're cleaning and you become even more self-aware of the dirt in your own heart. And that can feel like I just actually prefer to be in ignorance. I prefer to be covered by these layers of dust where I had no sense of what was going on, because the self-awareness is hurting me. And often people are like that in the world. They don't want to be self-aware. They don't want to reflect because they know that when I start looking carefully, I'm going to see things that I'm not proud of. And that's going to make me feel quite low in that situation. So these things we become more aware of, they come more to the surface. And I certainly remember that when I first started practicing Krishna consciousness, feeling a huge amount of envy for people around me and thinking, wow, like, just 2 weeks ago, I was loving this person. Just 2 weeks ago, I was so happy for them. And now all of a sudden, they're being glorified. And why are they so good at playing the mridanga? Like, why can't I play the mridanga? Why can't I sing? Why can't I learn shlokas? The list is endless. Why can't I do all of these things? Why am I not blessed? And I think we've got to be careful in this situation that when envy comes up, there can be an instinctive response of, A, I want to drag them down, but B, I actually know deep down I'm not very good, and therefore I'm not going to try very hard. And so we lose determination in our Krishna consciousness. And we think, I'm fallen, I'm insecure, and so I might hang around for a little bit. But ultimately, what you end up doing is you start causing offenses for people around you, and then Krishna is not pleased. Because when you start offending his devotees, he thinks, well, who are you? Why are you offending my devotees? And so it creates an immediate block between us and Krishna, a greater block than the anartha in the first place that was there. So we have to be so careful of avoiding these offenses when envy does spark up. So I just wanted to share 2 practical tips that Raj Bihari Prabhu shared in his classes that I think could be really helpful when dealing with envy, because it's all good knowing what the demon is in our heart, but how are we going to deal with it? And of course there is the obvious, which is by practicing Krishna consciousness, being surrounded by the devotees and being sincere in our practice and being prayerful. We'll gradually be purified just by nature of the process. But specifically he gave this practical tool, and it was journaling. Does anyone here do any journaling already? Okay, so journaling is a really powerful tool, and Braj Bihari Prabhu was explaining that the reason it's so powerful is that it helps us to slow down the mind. And if we can,
What is journaling?
What is journaling? Yeah, so basically writing down your thoughts.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no problem at all. So when and he was giving the example, you stand before the deities, and maybe you've had this experience. You stand there and you try and make a prayer, and you're thinking, what time is breakfast again? And so the mind is all over the place. Whereas when you journal, because it connects a different part of your brain, it forces you and it just slows down the mind. So he says there's 2 things you should do. You should have a gratitude journal for yourself, and then you should have a blessing journal for others. And I love this. And what I love about this is because if we try and jump directly to the blessing journal, we're going to really struggle, because that's where, very advanced devotees can do that all the time. Like, I'm constantly, far from being envious, I'm constantly praying for everyone else's well-being. But we're still self-interested because we still have these anarthas there. So we have a gratitude journal. So in this journal, and we've all heard of gratitude journals, but in this journal, it should be real. So don't say generic things like, I'm so grateful to my grandparents, I'm so grateful for, the air that I breathe, I'm so grateful for my kurta. Like, it's not particularly helpful. Gratitude should be real, it should be authentic, it should be fresh. So he says that just write down 3 things in the last 24 hours that you are genuinely grateful for. Genuinely. And it could be the smallest thing in the world, or it could be the biggest thing. So just think back to the last 24 hours, something that you've been grateful for, and write down that thing, and then write down why. And what that will do is, that will make you realize that, wow, there are so many blessings that I'm just missing. And the reason I'm missing them is that I'm so absorbed in myself that I'm not even noticing that Krishna is being so kind to give me these opportunities. He's opening these doors left, right, and center. Just like I said at the beginning, I was really reluctant to speak today, but I've not spoken really for about a year. And part of that reason is for the reasons that I've said, because there's this feeling of insecurity. But that, if you think about it, is the flip side of ego, because it's saying, I'm so great that when I do give class, it needs to be really good. But actually, the truth is, I am who I am. And so I might as well accept that and do my best and follow the process for purification. So a gratitude journal is really powerful for nourishing the self. But if we just do that, then we will become self-absorbed. And so the flip side is a blessing journal. And the blessing journal is thinking of one person in your life, that one thing that you would like to happen for them that is good and positive. And again, why that is the case. And we did this exercise collectively. And it was a beautiful exercise. It was so nice to just consciously think about someone else for once in your life. You know, just like we're so used to just praying for ourselves or praying for our family, praying for the people closest to us. But all of a sudden thinking about, I want to pray for that person there. And this is the reason why. So if we do that, then naturally it's a great way of dealing with envy in that situation. The other tip that he gave us was we need to first become aware of the anartha. So first become aware of what's in our heart, and then almost accept it. Accept that I do have this anartha. Don't be in denial. Don't be in denial that I've got lust. Don't be in denial that I've got anger. Don't be in denial that I've got greed, illusion, madness, and envy. He gave the example that I really liked of a disciple approaching Srila Prabhupada. And he said to Srila Prabhupada, he said, Prabhupada, I'm free of lust. And Srila Prabhupada said, this is Srila Prabhupada, he's our founding guru, and for someone we are all grateful. Srila Prabhupada said, then I suggest you go and see a doctor. Because he understood who in this world is free of lust. Who in this world? Our acharyas, our great teachers say that even at the end of life, lust can still come up. You know, the thought still comes up, sex life, and then I spit at the thought. So the idea is that it will come up. It's always going to be there. So we have to become aware of it. We have to accept it and acknowledge it. And then just be okay with it. Just say, okay, so that's a part of who I am right now. That's part of my makeup. But I know that I don't have the power to remove this dirt on my own. So then you take that envy, you take it to Krishna, and you say, Krishna, I mean, I know you already see because you're in my heart. I know you already see this envy, but it's pretty nasty. Like, it's not cool. And it's not bringing out the best in me, and I don't like the look of it, and I want to be better. Please, Krishna, help me to remove it, because only you have the power to do that. Please kill that demon, and you reside there, making it a beautiful place so that I can then serve you nicely. So here are two practical ways for you to deal with envy. The first that we suggested was keeping a journal, the two sides, a gratitude journal and also a blessing journal. And the second one is recognize the anartha, acknowledge the anartha, accept the anartha, but don't just be okay with it. That is who I am, so I'm going to continue being envious. Then go to the Lord and say, my dear Lord, please help me to remove this so I can become a better person. Okay, so that was it from me. So Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If there are any questions, comments, corrections, I will be taking comments and corrections. But for questions, Naveen Krishna Prabhu is here. So does anyone have anything that they would like to share? Any reflections based on the verse that we said? Yes, Prabhu.
First of all, thank you so much for your class. Very practical, I really love it. And I was always wondering, I couldn't find any answers to that, but who said to Kansa in the sky? It was like Vishnu himself? Like, who was speaking? Like,
at first I thought it might be Narada Muni. Like,
yeah, making some, but I couldn't find any.
Then maybe I thought it was the sound of providence, but I actually haven't found an answer. Does anyone in the class know who actually speaks that? Yes.
I already asked this question, and what one Prabhu told me that it was one demigod, but he doesn't remember who was. I asked her to Gopa Swami.
Yeah. But it makes sense because they all want this pastime to take place. They want Krishna to appear as quickly as possible and get rid of Kamsa, which we know he goes on to do, and kills various other demons before that too, and has so many loving exchanges. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
So I really appreciate you talking. I've not really been familiar with any of the readings before, but I think really from that reflection, they all seem like there's a lot of value and a lot of. I think for me the big take is I couldn't remember what's the word for the six. Is it the arthas?
Anarthas.
Anarthas.
Yeah, unwanted things in our heart. Anartha. Yeah.
Yeah, see that's interesting because it's almost as in terms of once you accept the capacity for consciousness and self-awareness, you also accept the potential on the complete other side of the coin of, like say, envy, lust and greed.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the human experience to come to terms with them and rise above them to reach a higher kind of state of consciousness.
Beautiful, beautiful. You've been here many lifetimes, Lucas. Okay, I can tell. But yeah, thank you for coming and listening so attentively. Yeah, it's explained that we are pure spirit souls, and we are part of God. We're eternal, the Lord's eternal servants. But yeah, when we come into this world, we become conditioned, and based on our seed desire, which is actually envy of the Lord and wanting to enjoy and be the supreme controller like Him. And so from that seed comes all of these other things. And it's a slippery slope that the Bhagavad Gita explains, that we have to catch them before they get worse and worse, because otherwise it leads to our degradation. And we can see that in the world. You can imagine, just let's take greed as an example. You can imagine someone having a gambling habit. That's why we have these 4 principles in Krishna consciousness that we don't do. So we don't eat meat, we don't gamble, no illicit sex, and no intoxication. And the reason for these is because they represent different qualities that we're trying to develop, whether that's cleanliness, whether that's truthfulness, whether that's austerity. So we have to recognize these anarthas, but not let them overcome us, not let them just sit with us, acknowledge them, but as I said, then practically work through the process of purification. And you've started that today. The beauty of Krishna consciousness is simply by sitting there and listening, just hearing the sound vibration, not my voice, but just hearing the sound vibration of the verse itself is purifying. And actually, I say not my voice, but I'm doing my best to repeat the words of Srila Prabhupada and all of our teachers. And so that is actually where the potency is there. There's a line of teachers, and the idea is this beautiful truth that's handed down like a mango, one after another. And therefore it comes to you in this perfect form, because it hasn't been messed with along the way. And that purity is the thing that we are reconnecting with our dormant Krishna consciousness. The reason I said you've been doing this for many, many lifetimes is because it isn't by chance that you and your friend have rocked up, to this temple. It isn't, and people do. We go to temples all the time, and people do, but then they're not interested. But for you to come to morning program, for you to get involved, be sincere, listen, suggests to me that you have an eternal relationship. Well, not suggest to me, you do have an eternal relationship with God. And in this lifetime, you are having an opportunity now to connect to a divine process that is going to allow you to reawaken that eternal, loving, personal relationship. So congratulations to you for being here. Thank you for coming. Okay, I'm conscious of time. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.